Hey y'all, how you doing today? Couple of warnings. One, this isn't going to be a very technical video. This isn't going to be a video that's going to be like, I'm going to be delving deep into all sorts of technical aspects and everything like that. And furthermore, it's not going to be a video where um, it's going to be as you can see by my hat, it's going to be a very Mopar centric video. Okay? So if that's not for you, go ahead and go watch something else. You're not going to hurt my feelings, okay? All right. Well, what I'm going to cover here today in today's video is this right here. I'm going to cover a couple of things, a few things. One is how to be a Mopar guy and how to make it work in the real world. Also, how to do it on a budget. What is basically the definitions of a Mopar guy, or what is your ideas, I guess. I wear this hoodie lots of times, like when I'm working with the horses, so I get little bits of hay on there and I get it in my mouth sometimes. Anyway, basically, what is your ideas of what a Mopar guy is supposed to be? There's going to be a lot of talking. Like I said before, this is not going to be a highly technical video, so there's going to be a lot of talking. So, just so you know, I to start off with, how to be a Mopar guy on a budget, make it work, and how to do it and do it in the real world. Okay? If you hear a dog, sounds of a dog in here, I've got one of my little dogs in here. So, Isabel is in here. All right. I guess to start with, when we're talking about, being a Mopar guy on a budget and making it work in the real world, the thing of it is I, myself, what I do is I think about what I'm going to do with that particular vehicle, how I'm going to use it, and, real world. I don't think about, okay, I want to put a Roots supercharger and, on a 426 Hemi and in a 70 Plymouth Superbird, and, then I want to, and have, you know, you know, steamroller rear tires on the back of it, pro stock, pro street looking, and try to drive it everywhere, every day. That's ridiculous. That's not going to work. I mean, I guess there's folks out there that have made something like that work, but I'm not going to. There's several reasons why. One is just, I mean, it's going to cost a lot of money to make that work. It's going to cost a lot of money just to buy all of that. Okay, uh, probably some folks who have done it pretty inexpensively, but in general, it's going to cost a lot of money to make that work. I think about what I'm going to do with the vehicle. Okay, so real world, I like to drive my vehicles and use them for pretty much everything. I don't really like that singular focus or singular use vehicle too much. Now, I'm not saying that they're a bad idea or anything like that. I'm just saying that when I build a vehicle, I want to build it for whatever I'm going to do. Now, you can look at my truck here as an example. It's a vehicle, it's my daily driver, okay? But I drive it everywhere. Now, it's not set up to go off road, okay? Because it's not even four-wheel drive. So, setting it up to go off road is kind of pointless because, one, it's not four-wheel drive, and two, I don't really want to go off road that much, okay? Just tears up a lot of stuff. So, that's kind of the idea there. The other thing is, when you're thinking about, I mean, this truck, I mean, getting back to my truck here for just a minute, I drive it pretty much everywhere. It's my daily driver. There are further modifications I'm going to plan for it, but it's going to be a street-based vehicle, okay? So I'm more concerned about the handling aspects of it, braking, handling, acceleration, that sort of thing. I'm not too much concerned about, you know, how it's going to act, you know, when we have a foot of snow outside, okay? And I live in East Tennessee, so that's, you know, snow period is you know, snow really is a real rarity. So, you know, I'm more concerned about how this thing's going to act on the road, how it's going to perform on the road. I'm not terribly concerned. You know, I live in a very hilly area where there's a lot of curvy roads, so I set my vehicles up to be very good, or be pretty good anyway, on curves, okay, and pretty good on the straightaways as well. Well, a few straightaways we have, okay. That's the thing. I don't take my vehicles off road, so there's no point in doing that. No point in setting them up for that. Okay. You know, so I like a multi-purpose, multi-use vehicle. So, with that in mind, you know, I have a plan. I have a goal. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start gathering up parts and pieces. Now, this is where the internet has become a big advantage to all car guys pretty much out there. Okay. Now, yes, let's get this out of the way. All right now. The Mopars are going to cost more. Okay. But let's stop and think about why that is. Okay. Long time ago, back in the 50s, Chevrolet decided, hey, we got this new small block V8. Let's go and let's take that small block V8 and let's send a bunch of them out to people like Iscadarian cams and Edelbrock intakes. You know, let's send, you know, to Iscadarian, Edelbrock, and Mylodon, and you know, just about Hillborn fuel injection systems, Holley carburetors. Let's send a bunch of them out. You know, Axle ignition, yada 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 yada. You get the point. Okay. So they sent a bunch of these engines out to all of these different aftermarket manufacturers, and all of these aftermarket manufacturers, they get a hold of these engines and they start testing them, and they start developing different intakes and carburetors and well, not so much carburetors, and maybe, you know, fine tuning a carburetor specifically for, you know, those engines. But they start setting up engines, setting up parts, making parts specifically for the small block Chevrolet. Now, that was in the 50s. Fast forward to today, there's a whole lot of them parts around. Yeah, a lot of those parts running around. So that's why you see so many parts on the internet and everywhere else for sale for small block Chevrolet. And that's why, one of the reasons why they're so incredibly popular. Okay, they're inexpensive, they're easy to build, they respond well to modifications, and there's plenty of stuff out there for them. Okay, fine. All right. Does that mean I want to put one in any one of my Mopars? Not really. Why not? Well, it's like this. When you go and you get into, to me, when I go and I get in a vehicle, I want to be in the experience. I want to be involved in the experience of that vehicle. Okay? I don't really want to have somebody else's engine under the hood of a Mopar, or under the hood of a Ford or a Chevrolet, really. Okay? Now, I mean, I'm not a Chevy guy, not necessarily a huge Ford guy. There are a few Fords I like, and there's a few Chevrolets I like. But by and large, for the most part, I mean, if I went and let's say I went out here and I bought myself a 62 or 65 Impala. let's say I bought a 65 Impala, I would definitely want to see a Chevrolet engine under the hood. Okay? When I turn that key, I would love to hear a Chevrolet starter. I wouldn't want to hear somebody else's starter. I wouldn't want to see somebody else's engine under the hood. I'd want to see the Chevrolet engine under the hood. Okay? So, that being said, same goes for, if I went and bought myself a 65 Galaxy. See a pattern developing here, 65? 65 Barracuda right over here behind me. Okay, yeah. Anyway, if I had a 65 Ford Galaxy, and I would want to see a Ford engine under the hood of some sort. Maybe not necessarily a Coyote, but maybe a 429 or a 460. Okay? Something to think about. All right. So, with that in mind, that brings about that, it's sort of like, in layman's terms, it's sort of like, would you go into a Japanese restaurant and try to order a hamburger, the Japanese restaurants where they cook right there in front of you, the hibachi style, I guess that's what they call it. They cook it all right there in front of you. Would you go in there and try to order a hamburger or spaghetti and meatballs? No, you wouldn't. You'd get what they have there. You'd want to be part of that experience. You want to be involved in that. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. So, for me, and Ford guys are the same way, and so are Chevrolet guys. Okay? We're all the same, really. Now there's some antagonists, they want to have like a LS, they want to put an LS engine in like my truck here, or, this Barracuda, or one like it, and I just don't see it. I'm not saying it's not a really good engine. I'm just saying, just not for me. All right. So the thing of it is, some people are like, well, they make more power and you can go faster. Well, if we live by that logic, then let's just all go out and buy jet engines. Military sells them surplus. You can get a surplus shaft-driven, turbine engine, jet engine that came out of a helicopter. You can get them. They're small enough you can put them in like something like this Barracuda or my truck or most any other car. Dealing with exhaust might be an issue, but that's, but you could do that, I'm not saying it's necessarily the most practical idea, but you could do that. Is it faster? Most likely, yeah. Especially when it's set up right. Yeah, it'll be faster. Is it inexpensive? Yeah. But here's the thing. Is it part of the experience? Is it part of that experience of that vehicle? Probably not. I mean, if you had like something that you just crafted up completely, from scratch, that was paying homage or tribute to maybe, some sort of military thing, some sort of, the military, I guess, then, which I fully support. If you were going to do that, then maybe a military turbine helicopter surplus engine would be a good idea. But outside of that, I just don't see that would really work out all that well. I mean, think about it for a minute. If you're a Ford guy, a Ford truck guy, and Ford truck guys, they don't want to see a bump side or a dent side with somebody else's engine in it necessarily. No. And Chevy guys don't want to see a square body Chevy truck or the previous generation 67 to 72 Chevrolet trucks with somebody else's engine in it, do they? Not really. And same goes for the Dodge truck guys. We don't want to see somebody else's engine under the hood. We want to see we want to see a Mopar engine under the hood. We want to be part of that experience. We want to be involved in it. So that's what it is. So hot rodding, to some extent, is going faster cheaply. But hot rodding is also going fast with your stuff. Okay? So that's a point to keep in mind. So, um, however, I have seen guys who have built hot, of course, all of us have seen people who've built hot rods that have spent just, just insane levels of money. It's just unbelievable. I mean, when you go and you look at what they've built, you're looking at it and you're like, what? Are you for real? So that's a point to keep in mind. I mean, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, they've got like 20, 30 grand just in the paint job alone. It's like, okay. And some people are like, well, how can I compete with that? Well, you don't compete with that. But what you do is you build your own. You build your own, your way to suit you. And that's a thing that I think a lot of people have forgotten about. They see stuff like bitchin' rides on TV and overhauling and all of this stuff, and they see these really fantastic cars, built by these really fantastically talented people. And then they see the cars, and then they see what, they are afterwards, and then everybody's like, oh my God, there's just no way I can compete with that. There's no way I can do that. Well, you don't, you're losing the point. You don't compete with it. Competing with it is not the point here. The point is you go build your own and you have fun with it and enjoy it and get out there. Okay? Gray Baskerville said that. Okay? You don't know who Gray Baskerville is? Go look him up. Okay? I guarantee you, if you're a hot rodder, you're going to want to read his stuff. Okay? Now, his big thing was, it ain't perfect, but that's okay. Just get out there and enjoy it. And that's the big thing. And I constantly remember that. Okay? So, and here I am, some hillbilly in East Tennessee. So, listen to some guy from California. All right, so tell me that the magazines didn't make a positive impact on some people, huh? Okay. Anyway, now, how do you do this? Oh, just so everybody knows, I have seen plenty of hot rods, and I'm talking like 30s and 40s hot rods, and a lot of those guys, they're hot rodders, but they'll go and they'll build like a 600 horse engine, and they've got it in their car, and it doesn't matter what kind of engine it is. They've got a 600 horsepower engine or more, and they've got it in their car, and they get to their show or cruise in or whatever, they back it off a trailer. They start it up, back it off a trailer, put it in they cruise over to a parking spot, they shut it off. Then when the show or the cruise in is over, they start it up, they cruise on, they go over to the where their trailer is, they load it up, and they shut it off. I'm kind of thinking, why do you have to have some big, huge, badass engine that makes 600, 700 horsepower to do just that? Maybe the car, lots of the cases, those cars don't even cover 1,000 miles in a year. So, I want to drive them. I don't want to put them on a trailer and trailer them everywhere. Okay. So, I mean, so that's just me. But I know, yes, some of those cars have tremendous amounts of money in them. And for those people that can do that, great, fine, wonderful. But for those of us that can't, well, there is hope. And how do you do this and be a Mopar guy? Well, you're probably looking behind me right now. You're probably seeing this stuff laying on the hood of my Barracuda right here, okay? These are parts, okay? All right. Now, you'll notice this stuff isn't brand new, okay? No, it ain't brand new. Look at this. crankshaft sitting here in this car seat. Car seat's not new. This crankshaft isn't new. 8 3/4 differential housing. That's not brand new. There's a bell housing right there. That's not new. None of this stuff is new. Nothing here is brand new. A lot of used stuff, but there's very little that's brand new. So, cylinder head right here. Doing some port work on it. Okay? I know I'm not a master porter. I'm not trying to be. Okay? I'm just trying to make something a little bit better. Okay? On a budget. And that's the main thing. Making it better on a budget. Now, of course, you're always going to have people, they're always going to like slam you for not spending the big money, the big bucks on like, hey, why don't you just go out and get a Edelbrock head? You know, why don't you just go ahead and go do that and spend that big, spend that money on that stuff? Okay, well, if you're going to fit the bill for that, then maybe we can be talking. If not, then too bad. No Edelbrock head. No Edelbrock heads here. Okay? Or anything else like that. So, I have to be a Mopar guy on a budget in the real world, I take what I've got and I make it better. Simple as that. Okay? Here's another example. Let's see. Perfect example right here. Here's the $50 318, covered with stuff. But as you can see, it is that water pump's I'm going to be putting that water pump on. Yeah, I know it's used. You don't have to tell me. I know. But I just wanted to get a water pump on it to help get some of the stuff that may be still left in here as far as like crud, rust, and things like that. I want to get that stuff out, and I'm going to eventually put a radiator on this. So I'm going to need a water pump. Okay, so I want to know how this. What I'm basically going to be doing is I'm going to be setting this engine up to be testing parts. Okay, so this engine is going to be testing parts, some parts here and there. So it's going to need a cooling system. So there you go. Now, for those of you that may not have, so let me show you another example. That $50 318, that's an example of, extreme frugality, being very frugal, but making it work. Okay, here's another example right here. Okay, I'm doing a little electrolysis on this cylinder head right here, and it seems to be working because the water has turned orange. It's not been in there 24 hours yet, so as you can see, it's working pretty good. I did that yesterday with an intake manifold. Did exceptional. That cylinder head that I'm porting will also get that because it's got some rust inside there. So we got to get that off. So that's what I'm talking about. That's how that's how you keep paying attention to the internet. Facebook, Marketplace, Craigslist, eBay, everything. Amazon, you name it. Keep checking with your buddies. Keep checking with your friends. And make sure to find out who's got what parts. And are they, what's available. And can you get them and make them your own? Okay? Can you buy them from them or trade or something like that? I'm trying to set y'all up here so you can. But maybe that's not going to work. So that's what I'm talking about. Okay? So with spare parts, you, of course, anytime there's a swap meet, which I hope we can get back to doing a lot more of that, when this whole COVID business is over with, hopefully, we can get this all done and over with before too much longer, and we can resume a more normal lifestyle. But you know, pay attention to all of those sources. For parts. Of course, there's always pull apart, those sort of things. Uh, how also another way that I make all of this happen is I look. Of course, I'm reading a lot. I mean, seeing a book right here. You know, reading a lot of stuff like this. I'm also paying attention a lot to people on the internet. There's a couple of different people I listen to. 2 or 3 different people I listen to. One of them is Gail Banks. He's very smart. He's a pretty smart cookie. Seems to have a lot of really good information out there. Another one is his name escapes me right now, but he does a whole lot of different engines. He's become kind of popularly known for the Big Bang on LS engines and stuff like that, but he's done a lot of different engines, not just Chevrolet LS. He's done a whole lot of different engines. So just go to YouTube, look up Big Bang, Big Bang LS engine. You'll see him there. Bald-headed guy. He's a pretty smart cookie though. Pretty smart cookie. So listen to him. And but there's also lots of information you can read about and gain a lot of good, solid information about vehicles. Okay, so anyway, what you need to be aware of is that doing this on a budget is possible. Okay, now one thing you may not have seen here is you haven't seen any Hemis, and that is correct. I don't have any. Just don't. Do I want one? Yes. Am I going to spend the money to get one? Several years ago, I could have gotten like a first gen Hemi, an early style Hemi, but it was a Dodge Hemi, and it was like a 241. But I weighed all of the options, and I started looking, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, it just really didn't. I mean, yeah, it's cool, it's awesome, it's got a lot of character and everything else, but it's big, it's heavy, and there's not a whole lot of stuff easily available for them. I can go through somebody like Hot Heads or something like that, and I can get a lot of stuff from them. But there's just not a lot of stuff out there. And they're not inexpensive engines to build. So that's another thing too. So, maybe one of these days I will wind up with a Hemi. But until then, I'm going to just, the small block LA is going to be my go-to engine. The big block B and RB series, those are also going to be my go-to engines, as well as the Slant 6 and the Magnum small blocks are going to be my go-to engines. Have a 4.7 single overhead cam engine in my daughter's truck right now. That's turning out to be pretty darn good. I'm actually pretty impressed with that thing. Been driving it now for quite some time. Not myself, my daughter has. So there you go. But another thing to do, to do this on a budget is, spend your money wisely. I go out here and I spend my money wisely by, like, as I've already shown you, getting parts, getting spare parts. If you look over here at my bins over here, You see a lot of used hardware. Lots and lots of used hardware. You don't see a lot of ARP fasteners. I'm not saying I don't use them. I'm not saying they're terrible or anything like that, because they're not. They're actually really nice. But anytime I can save some money on stuff like this, on this hardware, that's money I can spend on something else. Okay? So, yeah, I'd love to have the shiny, pretty ARP hardware all over the engine. Let's stop and think about it for a minute. Wait a minute. All of that shiny, pretty hardware, I could turn around and I could use it. I could use some of that money for something else. So that's what I'm talking about. So, these cams are another example. Sure, there's some rust on them, but I can polish that rust off. And before you know it, I can polish that rust off most of them anyway. Before you know it, I've got myself a good cam. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So, you're buying something used, may not be exactly clean and pretty and shiny, or it may need some work. I've got an intake manifold over there. I got to do a little port work to it. These heads, doing some more work to them, making them better. So you see the point. You see the way this is going. But also too, I go to the salvage yards and I keep my eyes open. Certain part numbers, certain parts and pieces, makes that'll, allow me to make more horsepower with a given engine. Okay? That's another thing. So, and also too, here's something else to keep in mind. Free horsepower. What is that? It's pretty simple. And this can be applied to virtually any kind of vehicle. Free horsepower is simply this. Weight. Weight, if you're trying to go fast, weight is your biggest enemy. Okay? So, when you have a car that weighs, let's say your car weighs 5,000 pounds. Now, it could be a car, it could be a truck, whatever. Okay. But it weighs 5,000 pounds. You have a 300 horsepower engine. It's not going to be the highest horsepower engine out there, is it? No. Matter of fact, it's going to be a pretty lame engine. Yeah. So, what you need to do, what you need to keep in mind, is that if you can go out here and you can, do some stuff to your car to lessen some of that weight out of it, that 300 horsepower engine all of a sudden seems a lot more lively. Another thing is, change your rear axle ratio. Your changing that thing out all of a sudden wakes the car up, makes it more snappy, gets it off the line a hell of a lot faster. Okay, so you might have a 323 gear in it right now, and you swap in a 373 or a 355 gear in it, all of a sudden you're seeing a nice little improvement, or a 391, or a 410, or a 411, 430, on and on and on and on. You see what I'm talking about? You go up higher numerically, you go into a lower gear. Okay, I know it sounds sort of backwards, but that's just the way it really is. So you go lower numerically, you're going to a higher gear. Okay. Now, so any of these things can help you out help you out a lot. So, when it comes to making your car go faster, just a thing to keep in mind. Okay. So I know there's a lot of folks, they want to have their cake and eat it too. You can still go fast with that. It's just going to take more work. Okay. It's going to take more, it might take more money. So, but, always keep your eyes open, pay attention, and be patient. That's another thing. Be patient. Don't buy the first high performance goodie you see. Examine your options. Look at what's out there. Look what's available. Then make the purchase, make the buy. Until then, you gotta play it smart though. You can't just go out here and just be stupid about it. And, buy the very first thing you see. But pay attention to stuff like, when you're buying a cam, pay attention to like the lobe separation angle, the lift, the duration, all of those things. Those are going to play, those are going to play a huge role in how that car acts. Okay. And then, of course, also take into account what you're doing with the car. Like I was saying earlier, plan how you're going to build the vehicle out. Until then, if you're not doing any of those things, then you're just throwing parts at a car and seeing what works. And that's not a terribly bad thing, but it's not always the best thing. That can get really expensive. So, use your head. Be patient. Use your head. Pay attention. Think about your think about your project. Think about what you're going to do, how you're going to make it work, and how you're going to make it work in the real world. Okay. So yeah, you can have that 600 horsepower engine in your car, and that might be really good for that 5,000 pound car. Okay. But you can have that 600 horsepower engine in your car, but maybe you've spent a hell of a lot of money getting there. So, all right, I've rambled far too long, and I think I've pretty much exhausted everything I was talking about. So, oh, and one more thing. The more stuff you can do yourself, the better off you're going to be when it comes time to pay those bills. Okay? So, if I can port my own heads, which I do, then that means I'm not paying somebody else to do it. Okay? Build my own carburetors, build my own engines, set up my own rear axles, do all of that stuff, do my own welding. Any of this stuff I can do myself, it's going to cost me less money in the long run versus paying hiring somebody else out to do it. Now, I'm not saying I can do everything here, but I can do a few things here. And there's some folks out there, that are probably way better at it than me. But I want to get on the road. Eventually I want to get something on the road. I want to build something, get it on the road, and get it going. If I'm spending a lot of time and a lot of money on getting somebody else to do this stuff for me, then that's costing me money. And that means I'm not getting the car on the road as quick as I'd like, because I got to pay that. Okay. So again, I've rattled off far too long, but I just thought that was worth mentioning, worth putting out there, and it is. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to skip through some of this video and get to some parts here and there, I don't blame you. But if you have any questions, comments, ideas, anything, you know what to do. Put them down below. I'll be very happy to respond. I love that interaction, and I love to help people out and get people going on the right road. So thank you very much, and have yourself a great day. And God bless.